but everyone has a different story to tell. Shell, which says it's losing it.
The Tampa market. Staggering rise.
In Northeast Africa, precisely on the Horn of Africa.
The local fund.
All right, good evening, good afternoon to you all. Once again, this is Frank. I am your host for the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series. I hope we get used to the change in schedule. So for now, we're going to be having our regular show time every Sunday, 1 p.m. for now, until otherwise before something changed. But for now, we're going to be having a show every Sunday at 1 p.m. As we continue to go on. How you doing, Sugar? Revolutionary greeting to you too. So today's topic is actually it says U.S. and EU at war with Africa. U.S. and EU, the European Union, the European nations are at war with Africa. And in discussing that, we're also going to touch on U.S. did not apologize to Africa. So everything fall within there. So I didn't want to like jam the topic, so I just share it, but it's the same thing. Okay, so EU and US, they are at war with Africa. Is the same as the US did not apologize to Africa. So there are some interviews that we're going to look at here, and from that interview, we're going to conclude that the US actually did not apologize because the US or the EU or the Western world, they work alongside with their media. So what their media report is actually from them, and what they report, that's why their media capitalize on and report on it. So their media does not give contradicting statement from their authority. So they all work together. So if you see the Western media or the United States media or European media that did not agree that the U.S. actually apologized, that showed that the U.S. did not apologize, because up to now, there is no video. So there is no video to say they actually apologize. All right. So it was some South African authority that came out to say the United States apologized because they met with the United States ambassador to South Africa behind closed door. And these are some of the things the African authority, the African leader, most of the time, some of the time, do, which is wrong. If the United States came out publicly, or the EU came out publicly to accuse you of an allegation, how dare you allow them to go behind closed door to apologize to you? When they accused you, it was never behind closed door. It was public on their media, on their platform. And they said it was showed, they were certain of what they were saying, that you were supplying ammunition to Russia. Then how come they took you behind closed door? They apologize to you like a slave. Because whenever the slave master wants to apologize to the slave, he does not do it publicly. He do it behind the scene to say he apologized to the slave. Because if he do it publicly, that will take the dignity away from the slave master. So how dare you allow the United States to take you behind closed door to apologize to you? Now, this is the dilemma that we are facing. So now they are coming out to say they did not apologize, because as far as they are concerned, I mean the media, the American media and the European media, they are saying as far as they are concerned, there is no video because the allegation was made publicly. Now, the apology was never made publicly. So there's no evidence that the United States actually apologized based on these videos, these interviews that was done by both American journalists and European journalists. They were adamant to say it is the South African authority that said the United States apologized. So that means they are saying the United States did not apologize because there is no evidence, and the United States did not give any statement or release any statement to say to their media that they actually apologized. So rather, the American media journalists are blaming the South Africa to say, you said the United States apologized. You said. So that means we did not say it. The United States did not say it. You said it that they apologize. So that's what we're going to look into here. And we're also going to dive into the US-Uganda saga about the so-called gay advocate of the United States. Because there are many things that the United States need to advocate for on the African continent. There are many things the United States need to advocate for African people. But the United States, being a hypocrite, always advocate against African interests. So let's see the first interview that we are talking about here. And then we're also going to read, I got two different articles that we going to back it off. Okay, so the other article is based on Saudi Arabia, the relationship between Saudi Arabia and when it comes to this so-called gay. All right, so there's an article on that we're going to look at. Why is the United States focusing on Africa and not on Saudi Arabia or other country or other continent? All right, but the United States solely focus on Africa. Why? We're going to look at the reason why the United States focus is on Africa when it comes to this LGBT, but the United States focus is not on Qatar or the UAE or Saudi Arabia. Why? We're going to discuss that. And then another thing that we're going to look at is from the article. It says U.S. sanction head of Russia Wagner Group in Mali. So we're going to look at that, what the U.S. put sanction on that group as it relates to the so-called allegation that the U.S. levied against South Africa. So that is why I said Europe and the U.S., they are at war with Africa, because we're going to read that article and then link it back to South Africa. So the United States is just playing her game, all right, in different ways, trying to confuse Africans for Africans to not unite, all right, because the war is changing. So the United States is making sure Africa does not change while the war is changing. While other nations are changing and finding partners and empowering themselves, all right, the United States and Europe, the colonizer, they are making sure Africa remains divided. African leaders will not focus on African unity and African liberation. That's the sole focus of the United States and EU, to make Africa to be divided and to make Africa not to focus on unity and prosperity and freedom and liberation of its people and its continent. That's the focus of Europe and the United States. Let's see something here. All right. So the first video, the first interview we're going to look at here, right? It is a German journalist. Because folks, listen to this. Europe and the United States, they have tried, okay, to conquer Africa. They have tried so much to conquer Africa in this new scramble for Africa. But for some reason, not only the African leaders, but for some reason, Africans around the world and African on the continent are standing up against the inhumane behavior of the United States and Europe. Africans are standing up against the tactics, the propaganda, the plan of the United States. That is why both the United States and the EU, they are so-called diplomats, they are so-called representative or delegates, have proliferated on the African continent, but nothing yet has been done as the way in which they want it. So then what happened? They are journalists, they are media, they are proliferating on the African continent, trying to make African people look stupid and dumb. They are all working together. And that is why you so-called African journalists, you so-called African reporter and African writers, when you are writing the African story, do not write it according to the model of the United States or the model of UK or the model of the West. Write it according to the model of African understanding and African perspective and African struggle. Reports based on African interests. Do not report because the United States wants you to report according to how they call it, war news. There is nothing like war news. The United States does not give war news. Europe does not give war news. What they give, it is news that have already been stated, in which they are going to bring it to favor them. They do not bring war news. They bring an edited news. They already edit the news before they bring it to you. But you so-called reporter, African reporters, yes, African journalists, you do not edit the news that will fit to the narrative of African, that will fit to the interests of African. You bring news that make Africans and the African continent defeated. You got to stop. It must stop. The Europeans don't do it. The Westerner don't do it. They bring an edited news to you. So, the video we're going to watch right now, and it's a German journalist interviewing one of the most proliferate, as I will put it, for lack of a better word, man in Africa called Maud Abraham. All right, he has given so many awards to African leaders who do the right thing. All right, I remember he gave this award to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf only because Ellen Johnson Sirleaf made a transition, a democratic transition, to President George Manning Weah, who is currently the president of the Republic of Liberia. So she gave that award to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf because I would say it was the very first time in the Liberian history to have a peaceful transfer of government, of government from one government, from how they call it, outgoing government to the incoming government. It was the very first time in the history of Liberia for that to happen, and that award was given to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. So this man is known, okay, for somehow preserving or protecting the African democracy. I'm not saying the American democracy, because America does not have democracy and America does not practice democracy. So let's see the interview here.
That some African countries have, in a number of Western countries, there's been consternation that some African countries have been ambivalent, or in the case of South Africa, neutral over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Is this payback for the West, for the wrongs of the colonial era? Is that why?
No. It's not the colonial era. Tim, let's be frank. The resolution, American resolution, called for the condemning the violation of the sovereignty of another country,
Of Ukraine.
of Ukraine. And many African people said, excuse me, what did America do in Iraq? Was that legal? Was that not breach of security, sovereignty of another country?
So why don't they condemn both then?
Exactly. But from US to put this resolution forward was a little bit really unwise. I think Germany should have put this resolution because Germany objected to the invasion of Iraq. But it's wrong for US to put this resolution because then, excuse me, you are hypocrite.
But is neutral really the side that
Yeah,
Africa
no,
wants to be on?
Can you see the point? Either there are international rules or no rules. You tell me. Are the rules only applies to Russia, not to US? Let's not be hypocrite. This is the problem. This is the problem. We need to look at the mirror sometimes and realize what we say and what we do. What happened in Libya? We went and broke this country. We never put it together again. Is that acceptable?
What do you make?
Look, let us be honest and dealing with this stuff.
All right, so sorry, folks. First of all, that discuss something here. So do you see the arrogance of the West when they are bringing their narrative to Africans? Did you see the statement he made? So is Africa, how they call it, I'm just going to paraphrase it. Is Africa staying neutral, or is Africa punishing Europe, or is Africa punishing the West for colonial crime? So did you see right there? Is Africa punishing Europe for colonial crime? Yesterday, when the United States killed Gaddafi, was that colonial time? Yesterday, when the United States destroyed Libya, is that colonial time? Yesterday, when the United States destroyed the Libyan economy, is that colonial time? Yesterday, when the United States started stealing the Libyan oil after they destroyed Libya and killed Gaddafi and killed the people governmental system, was that colonial time, or is that colonial time? Yesterday, when the United States confessed that the coup that was in Guinea, it was the United States that masterminded it. It was the United States that brought that coup. Was that colonial time? Yesterday, when the United States carried coup in Mali, is that colonial time? Yesterday, when the United States started putting sanctions on African nations like Zimbabwe, where America still have a sanction, is that colonial time? Only because these countries do not uphold to the interests of America, or do not uphold to the interests of America over their nation, over their interests, and you put sanction on them. Is that colonial time? Or yesterday, when Mali was taking on natural resources from the so-called colonial or imperialist business people who go and exploit the African continent. Yesterday, President Joe Biden, yesterday said that Mali was never invited in the so-called Africa, no, I think Burkina Faso, no, Mali, they was never invited in the so-called U.S. Africa Leadership Summit. Is that colonial time? You never allowed African people to voice out as the way in which they want to manage their affair. Is that colonial time? So you see how they bring the narrative. Oh, are you punishing Europe? Are you punishing the West because of colonial crime? Because of what it did? First of all, you did not apologize to it. Up to now, when African people speak against the ills in society, against things that you do to African people on a daily basis, when African people speak against the systemic issue that came from the result of enslaving African people all the way to colonial time, what you do? You step on their neck. What you do, you imprison them to the extent today you have one of our members, the African Socialist Party, just from speaking out, and you put allegation against him that he's working with Russia. But then, why yesterday you did not indict Trump when you said Trump infiltrated the election? Trump was working with Russia against the American election. Why did not indict Trump? So when every time African people stand out, you come up with false allegation, and because you have the system, the justice system that you control, you imprison African people. You step on them from speaking. Is that colonial time? Because colonial time, African people did not speak. Current time, 2023, African people are not speaking. Is that colonial time? We are just asking you question.
So it's not like the West is Lily White and all romantic.
Nobody's
and,
saying that.
Okay,
Nobody's saying that.
so don't lecture. Don't lecture other people and say, you look, I condemn, and I think it is a problem. It's unacceptable for Russia to invade Ukraine. And there's no question. But in the same breath, I'll condemn American invasion of Iraq, because this is equivalence. And we need to remember that. And I just hope that people, when they talk about international rules, they should apply to everybody. There's no exceptionalism.
Mo Ibrahim, what do you make of America's charge last week that South Africa had loaded arms onto a sanctioned Russian freighter? What do you make of that?
Okay, folks, let me remind you. I told you the United States did not apologize, right? Now, did you listen to the question? If indeed the United States did apologize, then why should this European journalist, okay, this Western journalist, stay rephrase or stay come out to ask the same question about the United States accusing South Africa of supporting ammunition to Russia? If the United States actually did apologize, why would they come out to still ask the question? They still uphold the view. They still uphold the view that South Africa actually supply weapon to Russia against Ukraine. So did you see the question? So based on the question, do you believe that these people agree that the United States did apologize? Do you people agree that these people believe that South Africa did not supply ammunition to Russia against Ukraine? They don't believe it because they know that the United States did not apologize. That is what this interview is about. And that's what he said. Why would he bring it out if the United States already apologized? Why would he bring it out if the United States have already told the world that they lie? He brought it out because there is no evidence. There is no video. It's not on American website. It's not on or European media. It's not on their website or their media that America apologized. If you check their website right now, it's there that South Africa admitted of supplying ammunition to Russia against Ukraine. It's on a website that the United States saw or accused South Africa of supplying ammunition to Russia. It's still there. So did you see the question? So the United States did not apologize. Let me forward a little bit so you can see it again. You can listen to the question.
Ministers in a short space of time resign.
Well, oh, hold on. Did I change this here? Why did I change it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I changed something here. I touched the wrong button. All right. Oh, sorry, folks. I touched something different here, and all right. I see what happened here. This is not the right one I have to bring. Yeah, I just did. I hit the arrow, but it ain't come. I hit the arrow. I just did. Yes. So something different keep coming out. All right. So all right. I will just continue. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'll have to go back to my email and see if I can pull it out. I didn't like this. Let me see. All right, so I'm gonna play this, and then I will get back to it. I will just place this. So let's see here. Let me see. BBC interview with President Julia Malema. All right, I'm gonna take this out, and then let me see if I can bring it back. Sorry, guys. Let me see. It's technology sometimes. Let me see what did. Hopefully, I found it. It's not even here again. All right, hold on, folks. Let me see if I can go to my email and bring it out quick. Sorry, folks. Let me see here. I gotta show that. All right. Let me see if I can bring it out. All right, sorry, folks. I just got it. I'm gonna bring it out back. All right, I have it. So
there's been consternation. So why don't they condemn both then?
Exactly. But from US to put this resolution forward was a little bit really unwise. I think Germany should have put this resolution because Germany objected to the invasion of Iraq. But it's wrong for US to put this resolution because then, excuse me, you are hypocrite.
But is neutral really the side that Africa wants to be on?
Can you see the point? Either there are international rules or no rules. You tell me. Are the rules only applies to Russia, not US? Let's not be hypocrite. This is the problem. This is the problem. We need to look at the mirror sometimes and realize what we say and what we do. What happened in Libya? We went and broke this country. We never put it together again. Is that acceptable?
What do you make?
Look, let us be honest and dealing with this stuff. So it's not like the West is little white and all romantic.
Nobody's saying that.
Okay,
Nobody's saying that.
so don't lecture. Don't lecture other people and say you. Look, I condemn, and I think it is a problem. It's unacceptable for Russia to invade Ukraine, and there's no question. But in the same breath, I'll condemn American invasion of Iraq. because this is equivalence. And we need to remember that. And I just hope that people, when they talk about international rules, they should apply to everybody. There's no exceptionalism.
Mo Ibrahim, what do you make of America's charge last week that South Africa had loaded arms onto a sanctioned Russian freighter? What do you make of that charge?
I'm really confused. If that was true, why the ambassador apologized?
Well, we only have South Africa's version for saying he apologized.
He did not.
Now, folks, did you listen to that? We only have, I mean, listen to this. But we only have South Africa version that says he apologized. Did you hear that? We only heard South Africa version that says he apologized. We did not see the American side. We did not hear the American side. Nothing had been published. Nothing had been published on the American media or Western media. Nothing had been written. So it is the South Africans that are saying America apologized. It is the South Africans that are saying the ambassador apologized. But we, the Westerner, we, the European, we, the American, are not saying America apologized. America did not apologize. That is what he's saying. Did you hear the question? That means, hey, you Africans, if you want to believe that America apologized, so be it. But what I'm telling you, we did not apologize. We are not going to apologize because you are 3/5 of a lesser human being. You are inferior. We do not apologize to our colony. We do not apologize to our slave. If we want, come on, did you listen to the question? The U.S. did not apologize to Africa. And that is a disgrace to the African nation. I mean, to the African continent. That is a disgrace to the African leaders. That is a disgrace to the African leaders.
What do you make of that charge?
I'm really confused. If that was true, why the ambassador apologized?
Well, we only have South Africa's version for saying he apologized.
He did not apologize?
He didn't apologize in public.
Oh, I thought I wrote.
Did you hear that? He did not apologize in public. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He did not apologize in public. That means he's actually saying, if you Africans are so dumb and stupid to believe that the United States apologized, then you are dumb and you are stupid. Because how can someone accuse you publicly and then go behind closed door and apologize? If someone accuses you publicly, to the public, to the world, they should come out to the public, to the world, and apologize to you and says, we lie on you. You heard it. Did America apologize to Africa or to South Africa? Absolutely not. That is why he has, I can't explain this further, folks. This is a disgrace to the African leaders who still look up to America or to the West for leadership advice or for leadership capability or for direction. How can people who do not respect you, how can people who see you as 3/5 of a lesser human being, how can people who see you as inferior, how can people who see you as you have a low IQ, because you continue to tell them that you are inferiors. You continue to to let them know that you are 3/5 of a lesser human being. You continue to let them know that you cannot rule or govern your country or your continent. You continue to let them know that unity is not among Africans. You continue to let them know that African people will never unite. African people will not solve their problem unless the white man is in there. Unless the colonizer is there. Unless the enslaver is there. You are the fault. You African leaders are the fault. You African leaders are the problem to that continent. That is why these Westerners will always put it in your faces and they don't care. Now you run with it. How can these folks accuse you publicly? How can they lynch you publicly? How can they rape you publicly? How can they break you publicly? And then go behind the scene and apologize to you. And then you come on public and says they have apologized. But they lynch you publicly though. They step on your neck publicly. They rape you publicly. They dehumanize you publicly. And that is why he's putting in your faces, you African leaders. He's telling you people, yeah, you can sit and believe that BS that America apologized. Do you believe it? That's your version. What is a version of the United States? What is a version of Europe? But listen, tomorrow you're going to see the African leaders. They will be back on bars when Joe Biden called in. They will be back on bars when the prime minister of the so-called Britain or the so-called way, how you call it, the EU called them. You're going to see them back on buses like sardines. Going for nothing meeting or for nothing summit. These people treat you like a slave. They still view you like a slave. As long our power is not in our hands, as long our destiny is not in. Look, let's continue. Let's continue here. I don't want to talk too much. Let's go ahead.
Wrote that in BBC website actually that he
They didn't.
apologized.
No, South Africa said he apologized to them, but they denied the charge. But when they did deny it, the wording was ambiguous. They said, we didn't approve any arms to Russia. It wasn't sanctioned or approved by us. That suggests there was.
So you hear it. In other words, the United States or Europe, this is a European journalist, okay? We're going to go to the United States journalists as well, and you see the view of these people. In other words, this idiot is sitting here saying that there was ammunition because the United States came out of a statement that said they were setting that South Africa supply arms to Russia. But now you see this man sitting here telling us that they were setting. And now they are saying South Africa denied the allegation that they did not supply ammunition to Russia. So you see how they flip the table around. So they are still setting of the allegation. They are 100% setting. But now they are telling us, okay, they are telling us, we Africans, that we deny it. Is that not the slave versus the slave master mentality? Somebody tell me, somebody speak to me. Is that not the slave versus the slave master mentality? Is not that the colonizer versus the colonized mentality? The colonizer versus the colony mentality. The neo-colonialist versus the colonialist mentality. Just tell me something. I don't know, maybe I'm getting it wrong. Or maybe I'm not understanding his interview. Let somebody come and tell me.
was something that took place, doesn't it? They're
I,
playing with words.
I'm afraid that South Africa has a number of issues, I think. And where is the ANC? Where is the government? I think ANC probably is losing its grip on power effectively. And I read somewhere today that it's possible that Ramaphosa even not aware of what happened. They cannot admit that because they say, okay, this is terrible. If he's aware and he denied, is also terrible. Are the American reports wrong? We don't know. American reports now are more accurate than before. I mean, during Iraq, it is the weapons of mass destruction, and which is became rubbish actually.
All right. So what he's saying here is because these journalists keep emphasizing, keep forcing a question on him that South Africa should accept that they supply ammunition to Russia. He's saying that South Africa should accept, or he's saying that Mr. Abraham should accept the report of the American ambassador, or the report of America, or the report of Europe or the West, that South Africa, they supply ammunition to Russia. So he's telling this man to accept. So this man, and then he's saying that, the general is saying that they actually believe, they believe the report of the United States. But he is telling this journalist that, are you telling me to believe the report of the United States? So what the United States said that there was weapon of mass destruction in Iraq, and then when there was no weapon of mass destruction, was that true? So how can I believe the United States, but the same United States said they went to Iraq because there was weapon of mass destruction, and they came back and said there was no weapon of mass destruction? Oh no. Let's go back to the African continent again. How can we believe the United States when it was a sin Barack Obama, when he was president, he was carrying on the order of the colonialists, being a neo-colonialist. He went and killed Gaddafi and destroyed Libya. When Hillary Clinton at that time, his vice president, went and sat and said, we went, we saw, we killed, and we conquered. But later on, Barack Obama said, one of the greatest mistakes he ever did in his administration was to go to Libya, to destroy Libya, to kill Gaddafi. What does that mean? America actually confessed that what she went to in Libya, what she accused Libya for, what she accused Gaddafi for, that was not what she killed Gaddafi for. Then how can we believe America? These are just few examples. These are just few instances of what America have done, what America have lied, perpetual lied, and continue to lie and destroy continents, destroy nations. How can we believe them when they come out with a report again to say South Africa supply ammunition to Russia? How can we believe that? That's what this man is telling him.
But during the Korean War, the Americans have been very accurate in reporting. So I really don't know them. I don't know what is the truth of what happened there. But I notice the deterioration of governance in South Africa, and will speak public about this.
All right. In the time we have left, we talked a lot about what African countries have or haven't done. What do you want the West, very briefly, what do you want the West to do for Africa now?
Did you see that stupid question? What do you want the West to do for Africa? Let me phrase the question. The question is, what do you want Africa to do for the West? Because the West have done nothing good for us. We don't need the West. The West have destroyed Africa. The West have destroyed us Systematically, the West have killed us systematically. Whether bioweapon, whether physical, whether torture, lies, propaganda. The West have done a lot to us. We don't need the West. The question is, what can Africa do for the West? Oh, maybe you don't know. Let me remind you again a little bit. A wise man is speaking to you. Not what the West can do for Africa, but what Africa can do for the West. For example, that's why over the year, you have proliferated on the African continent. We are diplomat. We are president. We are prime minister. We are delegates. Nowhere in the world your delegates have traveled more than Africa just last year up to this year alone. So the question is, what can Africa do for the West? Your vice president have been there. Your president have been there. Your secretary have been there. Your treasury secretary have been there. Senator have been there. All these people have been there. Your prime minister, your council. What can Africa do for the West? That should be the question. We don't need you. You need us. Maybe we will tell you what Africa needs for the West is the West should leave Africa and African people alone. That's all we need. If we are to be sincere to your question, leave us alone.
I think the West need really to behave in a much better way. Look at what is happening here. COVID came and we had a big problem. All European leaders, 20 European leaders and African leaders signed a letter published in FT. Nobody's safe unless everybody is safe. Africa needs support. We need $100 million to put it. And then nothing happened. Good words, but no deeds, nothing done. Then people hoarding COVID, nationalism, and let say, guys, even our health service needs support. Nothing. Okay? That was really bad behavior, really bad and stupid, because they are not safe unless everybody is safe. They know that. So
but there's more engagement now from the West.
Let us see, but no, but after
EU-Africa summits, 6 EU-Africa summits.
Yeah, but what is EU-Africa summit was great, but let us see the deliverable. That's very important. Look at the Africa debt stress now. During COVID, $20 trillion out of thin air everywhere, in Germany, in America, in US, in Britain, out of thin air, $20 trillion. Africans could not raise any money. Okay? And now they're in debt stress. What is happening? When Ukraine has a problem, what is happening?
Folks, look at his facial expression. Look at his face. That is exactly the expression of a colonizer. That is exactly the expression of an enslaver. That is exactly the expression of an oppressor. To see an African man speaking eloquently, speaking with no fear. See, he's sitting right there. To see an African man educating him, to see an African man putting him on a spot of what they have done to African people, of what they have done across the world. Look at his face. Look at his facial expression. Look at his face. In his mind, something evil is in his mind. Something demonic is in his mind to do. Look at his face.
Is happening. When Ukraine has a problem, when Greece has a financial problem, the IMF and the World Bank immediately sort it out. Now, what's happening in Zambia? What's happening in Sierra Leone? 2 years. Did they act? No.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to
All right, we're going to end that with that video, right? But what he was saying here is, because he asked this man about Europe and Africa working together, because he asked the man, what can the West do to Africa, right? And the man answered him, if I can just paraphrase it, Africa need nothing from the West because, and then he left there and said, how can you say that? Because we just have Africa Leadership Summit. And the man told him it's not fruitful. Having it is one thing, making it fruitful is another thing. And at the end of the video, the man told him there is nothing like globalism. The only time you talk about globalism if things happen in Europe or in America or in a white man land. Then you talk about the world should come together. But look at things that happen in Africa, around the African continent. Look at things that happen in African nation. Oh yeah, right here, Haiti, just behind the America back, right here. Right here, Haiti is not even far from America. Haiti is not far from North America. Haiti is not far from Europe. That I don't even talk about Africa. Let's talk about Haiti right here. Where is the war? Where is the humanity? Oh, if it is black people, then let it happen to them. Let them die because they are not human. But when it is black, I mean white, then you want for black people to go and fight. Then you want to make it like, oh, it's global. Then you want to get peace. You will understand what a refugee is. There is nothing like globalizing, Africans. We are on our own. No one will fight for us. We must unite the African continent, the African nations around the world, out and in Africa. We must unite and coordinate businesses among us and seek our own interests. We can never save the world. The world have never had time to save African. The world have only saved their kind. And which we Africans have to do the same thing. We cannot save the world. The time we try to do it, the world enslaved us. The time we try to save the world, we try to be there for the world that we are human. They enslave us. The time we try to save the world, they colonizer. The time we try to save the world, they start killing our democratic leader. The time we try to save the world, they imprison us. That's why you have political prisoners. The time we try to save the world. Let's continue to the next page. Let's see the next article. Oh, did I bring it up? Yeah, it should be here. U.S. sanctioned head of Russian. Where it is? Let me see here. Hold on, folks. All right. If I'm not funny, we will just continue to the next. I mix things out here. All right. So we will continue to the next BBC interview. We will continue to the next. If I come across it, I will show you. All right. If I come across it, I will show you. So we're going to continue to the next. So let me see. BBC. All right. All right. So we just watched the European side of the version of the interview, right? Of what happened in South Africa. Now we're going to look at the American side, the American journalists. So we're going to the European side, the American side, and see, okay? They all work together. So we do fair share here, all right? So let's see this.
Check out securely with PayPal. Trust the way you pay.
Hold on, folks. I did something. I just touched the wrong thing. Let me see here. If I can find it. I keep touching the wrong thing. Yeah, this is. All right, let me go back to my email and bring it out. All right, I had to go back to my email again and see if I can bring it out. All right. All right, cancel. All right, sorry, folks. I keep making mistakes, so I have to go back to my email to bring it out. So hopefully that's the reason I always put them together in my email. So they're all in my email. So just in case of anything disruption, and then I can go and get it back. Yeah. So the interview you saw, that was the German one, right? Now this is the side of America. All right. So see their view, all of them. All right. They did not agree that how they call it, the United States apologized. They did not agree. So let's look at the other version of this again, of the interview.
The state-owned.
Now on BBC News, Hard Talk asks tough questions in interviews with people who are shaping the news.
Welcome to Hard Talk from Johannesburg. I'm Stephen Sacker. For 29 years, South Africa's national politics has been dominated by the African National Congress. But right now, the ANC is in big trouble. A protracted energy crisis is doing further damage to an economy already hit by shocking levels of unemployment, inequality, and corruption. Now, if the
First of all, let's understand something here, right? Now, I am not saying there is no corruption in South Africa. I'm not saying there is no unemployment in South Africa. But when did they realize that there is an, how they call it, unemployment in South Africa, or there are unemployment in South Africa? When did they realize that corruption is in South Africa? Did they realize it when? the South African government is no longer protecting the so-called foreign policy interests, or American foreign policy, or Europe foreign policy, or Asia foreign policy. So is it now that they know that unemployment is rampant? Because this is something Julian Malema has been speaking of time with our numbers. This is something other advocates in South Africa have died because white South Africans and Europe and the West did not want for those people to speak about it. So why now are they speaking about it and saying that the ANC government have been in power for decades? Is it now that they are saying it? No, folks. Whenever the West speak against a government or being in power for so long, that means that government no longer protect or support their selfish interests over the people of that country. There have been unemployment in South Africa even before Ramaphosa. Why you people did not speak? There have been injustices. There have been rampant unemployment, corruptions. Why you people didn't speak about it? But do you see how the West do things to put Africans together? Now, Africans who do not understand will now believe that, oh yes, this idiot is speaking in their favor. This idiot is speaking for them. And they will not believe this idiots. And if they are not mindful, they will carry the narrative of these idiots. And they hate one another. And then you will see in South Africa, and that's what happened in a lot of African nations. Now you will see individual groups. You will see groups by names, by identity, going against each other, and killing one another and destroying one another, calling one another names, and not seeing themselves as one people of that nation, of that continent. This is what they do. They are not real. When did they realize that unemployment is in South Africa? When did they realize that corruption is in South Africa? When did they realize that ANC is failing or has failed? When? Let's continue. Let me make a statement. They realized it when Ramaphosa, when the South African government, when the ANC is not going to the Commonwealth, it's not going to America, it's not going to Europe, but rather the ANC is being part of the BRICS. These people are not speaking African people interests. They will never speak in African people interests. He left and went and stood on the ground of Africa and then want to put African people here together, want to divert the attention of African people. The ANC is falling to them because the ANC government under Ramaphosa is not buying down to the US, it's not buying down to the British Commonwealth, but rather they are taking a different trend of being part of the BRICS nation. Propaganda.
ANC is faltering. Who is best placed to offer an alternative? Well, my guest today is Julius Malema, leader of the radical populist economic freedom fighters. If Malema were to get even a share of power.
Now, do you see how these people, this is complete enemies. Be careful of their words, because their words are smoother than butter, but war is in their heart. Their words are smoother than oil, but war, sword are in their hands. When did they realize that Julian Malema was an economic freedom fighter? Man, come on, man. Listen to me. When did they realize that Julian Malema was actually fighting for African people, was actually an economic freedom fighter. When?
Power. What would that mean for South Africa? Julius Malema, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, Mr. Malema. We are speaking as South Africa is in the middle of an energy crisis. It seems set to get worse. What do you think it is doing to this country?
Well, its aim is to collapse this country and undermine the democratic project because those in power have relegated their responsibilities to who we don't know. They've not maintained the power stations. They've not built the new ones that are functional. And as a result, we are where we are.
The interim CEO of Eskom, the state-owned energy company, said yesterday that over the coming months of winter, they might get to a stage 8 situation, which means there could be power cuts for pretty much 12 or more hours per day. But you have gone further. You have said that you think the grid will collapse. In fact, you said South Africa is going to be plunged into darkness within 2 weeks. Why are you exaggerating?
I'm not exaggerating. I said this before they told you there was a stage 8 coming. The stage 8 is to prepare you that the worst are coming. And I'm telling you the truth as is. What is it that can avoid the collapse of the grid, which they've done in between? Which station have they built that is functional to its expectation? Which station have they maintained? Have they said, this one, we're closing it down, we're going to engage in major maintenance of this station? Nothing major has been done.
But your statements could spread panic. Is that what you want?
No, I'm not spreading panic. I'm telling the truth. Stage 8, they are just being polite. We're going to go, and you are talking hours, we're going to go days without electricity. It's a reality that we need to deal with, even after announcing stage 8. The manner they did. Which ANC politician have you seen panicking? Which president have you seen calling the nation into confidence about what is really happening? We hear from officials as if we don't have elected leadership of this country.
On March 20th, you declared a national shutdown. You tried to shut down the entire economy in the midst of this power crisis. Is that responsible?
That is the most responsible thing to do. Do you want me to fold my hands? Do you want me to not do anything? What will history say about me? I'm going to be asked a question, not by you, by the future generation, as to what have you done when South Africa was in a crisis. The most logical thing to do is for the president to resign. Was it in Britain where we saw prime ministers in a short space of time resigning one after another because they realized they were not about to carry the national agenda? The president is not carrying the national agenda. We need a government of national unity constituted by all of us who are not driven by political party interest, but the interest of South Africa to resolve this immediate crisis, which will affect all aspects of our lives.
National unity, you say. You also said at the time of the national shutdown, this shutdown is the beginning of a revolution. No one can stop it. No army can stop it. No police can stop it. Some of your members put out videos threatening to beat up teachers and police if they went to work. One even threatened to beat up pupils if they went to school. And you talk to me about national unity?
But that video of a person who was threatening to beat up pupils if they go to school is an old video. I think Hard Talk should have done its research to now realize that video has been resurfaced to support a certain narrative. There's no such a thing. I'm telling you, there's going to be a revolution. Let the grid collapse and let's see what's going to happen.
Let the grid collapse.
I'm saying to you.
How do you think South Africans are going to feel hearing
No,
you
I'm
say
saying-
that?
I'm
People
saying-
who are losing their jobs, people who have no income,
you're
and you just say,
misinterpreting me. You are misinterpreting me. I'm saying to you, let the grid collapse as it is going to happen and see what's going to happen in this country. I'm not wishing it. I'm saying it's going to happen. And you will see what's going to happen. Do you think that once the grid collapse, people are going to exchange roses with government? People are going to rise. And when they rise, there will not be any leader who will be leading them. There will be leaderless, there will be anarchy, there will be looting all over this country because nothing will be working. So if you think that I was bluffing on the 20th of March, I was just saying to this government and the people of South Africa, something ought to be done to avoid what is possibly coming, which is going to be a leaderless revolution.
That's very powerful rhetoric, but the truth is, on 20th of March, according to employers, 70% of workers across the country went to work. One political commentator said that actually the failure of the national shutdown was a, quote, humiliation for Malema.
From where we're sitting, the shutdown was successful. Nothing was operating. The South African media was at the public transport, taxi ranks, at bus ranks. The taxi drivers themselves, the bus drivers themselves have said, we showed up, but there are no people. So if you're going to listen to a desktop, possibly a racist analysis of wanting to undermine the narrative of the success of the shutdown, then that's your own baby to nest. But the reality is that nothing functioned on that day. You can go to the public broadcaster, you can go to independent media outlets in South Africa to give you the footage of the day, every corner. And what even makes me happy is that even in the rural areas, where normally the revolution never takes place, the people were out in their numbers saying, enough, it's enough.
Let's think about the lessons to be drawn from the current crisis, because what we see is a state-operated energy giant which is failing to work. It is not delivering power to the people. We have other countries. I'm thinking of Zimbabwe, I'm thinking of Venezuela, and the model does not look good to many South African people who see it.
You know, it looks good. We're using it now. We were better off now owning this. It's not like I'm saying, let's go and take ESCOM out of the hands of the private sector. We are owning it already. So, and then South Africans have accepted and are happy with what
You're owning it already, and it's a complete mess.
That's why South Africans are saying, let's get proper people to go and run these institutions.
Are you the proper person?
I'm a proper guy.
I mean, I don't want to go too far back into history, but at various times you failed to actually file a tax return on time. Yeah. You've been accused of different financial offenses. You've never been convicted, but some of those charges were never brought to court. But you tell South Africans, despite your own history, you are the guy to run their economy.
That's why.
Sorry, folks, let me explain that a little bit. We're going to get to the part of South Africa, right? About the ammunition of Russia's the situation. But let me explain that part. So let's go back to the first video. The first video said there was a question asked from the journalist and said, is Africa punishing, the worst because of 8 colonial past? So do you see these white folks? They hate for you to question them about their past. And even their past is still the present. Because what they did in the past, they are still doing it in the present. But they are very sophisticated. Because you know what? When you do things over and over and over and over, you become so sophisticated. That is, you become so good at it to the extent that if people are not careful, they will never understand that what you are operating on, it is something that was rooted from the past. Now, did you see the question he asked Julian Malema? Because all he thought, he was going to override this individual with his interview. Do you see the glasses on his face? Almost similar to the first journalist from the video that we watched. Do you see his expression right there again? But he realized that he was dealing with a black man that understands his thing. He realized that he was dealing with a black man that knows what he's talking about. So he's asking Malema about his past, about taxes that Malema should have given to the colonizer. Have the colonizer ever given taxes to the people who own the land? Have the colonizer who stole the land ever give taxes to the people who stole and exploited the land? Have the colonizer, the thief, have the thief pay taxes to the proper owner of the land? But here it is, he's here asking, interviewing Julian Malema about his past, that Julian Malema did not give taxes to the colonizer. Julian Malema have all these crimes against him that he did not give taxes to the colonizer. So how can Julian Malema portray himself as being a perfect or the right man? But listen to what Julian Malema gave him.
That's a mind of a lazy person who doesn't do his work. You will have to refer back to 15 years. I've grown up over a period of time, build a solid political party. The only thing you can keep on referring to is what you interviewed me about it 12 years ago. Get something new, my brother.
No, I'm very...
Show a skill of a hard-working presenter who does his research. You can't falter me. Since I've made my mistakes on text when I was very young, when I was almost 27 years old, fixed that problem. Today, I'm a 42-year-old married man with children who has taken responsibility and built a solid party to be the third largest party without the support of white monopoly capital and the owners of the South African economy. You keep on referring to old and old things because you are now beginning to sound like a scratched CD.
You have every right to tell me you have changed.
Tell me of me now. I've been in parliament for 10 years.
Let's take one particular aspect of your policy positions.
Yes.
Do you think aligning yourself with Vladimir Putin is going to be good for South Africa?
But that's what it is now. South Africa is in alliance with Russia, with India, with Brazil, with China. So why are you asking me as if it's some policy that is going to be...
So let's address this question again. Do you see why Africa is distancing themselves from America or from the West or from Europe? Do you see this? Have America or Europe ever gone to India to interview India authority or leadership about Indian partnership with Russia? Have they ever gone to China to interview the Chinese authority about their partnership with Russia? Have they ever gone to the Asian country to interview them about their partnership with Russia? Have they ever gone to the Middle East or to Dubai or to Qatar or those places to interview those people about their relationship with China? With Russia. It is only Africa that these people always get the guts to come and threaten. It is only Africa that these people always go because they feel that Africa is still a colony to them. Just how, listen folks, just how they sat there to tell the world that America did not apologize to South Africa. Just how they sat down there and they told the world that it is the South African version that the United States apologized. But the United States version is that they did not apologize. They still see us as colony. They still see us as protectorate. They still see us as their territory. They still see us as their property. You know why? Do you know why they still see us as their property? Because we fail to protect one another. We fail to unite. We fail to come together. We fail to speak with one voice. We ourselves are the neo-colonialists who destroy each other for the white man's sake. What is happening in Sudan right now? What is happening in Sudan right now? How can two stupid, dumb-headed black men, African, general, fight each other to destroy their country, to destroy their people, to kill their people for the sake of American interest, for the sake of the Western interest? Why? Stupidity. That is why these people will always look down on Africans. They will always look down on black people because we are the problem to ourselves. We protect the interest of the colonizer, the oppressor, over our own people, over our own destiny, over our own existence, over our own freedom. We prefer to be in captivity than to be in freedom. So that is why these people will always take action against us that they will never take against other people. That is why these people will never question other nation or other continent when they stand for their interest of what is right for their people. When we take that same action or steps, they will question us because we are the problem at times in this case. We are the problem. How can two stupid and dumb generals go from the same place fight and destroy the country and kill one another because of America, because of other people's interest, because of Europe's interest? Why? Why there is still war in DRC Congo? Because authority in our land don't want to reason. Who told you you cannot be rich when your country is free and peaceful? Who told you you will not be rich? Who told you you will not be rich when you control your own resources, your own diamond, your own uranium, your own lithium, your gold? Who told you you will not be rich? Who told you you can only be rich when a white man come and control your resources? Who told you? That's the time you will be rich. Who told you that? No, Malcolm X said I should ask you. Malcolm X told me to ask you that question. Who told you if you control your own destiny, you will not be a human being? Who told you if you control your resources, your God-given resources, you will not be rich? Who told you if you control the African continent, you will not be rich? Who told you you will be poor? Who told you it is America that should control Africa before you so-called Negro that call themselves leaders will be rich? Who told you that?
South Africa right
after
now.
I took over, South Africa is in alliance with Russia now.
South Africa right now calls itself non-aligned.
In the context of the war, but these are two different things. South Africa is an ally of Russia. Now, the second question is, where does South Africa stand on the war? It says I'm a non-aligned in relation to war, but Russia remains South Africa's friend. So we cannot create confusion around there. Don't create an impression that it is Malema who's going to come and create an alliance with Russia.
But there are some very specific...
Actually, I will,
if I may
I
say
will
so.
go beyond that. I will go beyond the friendship with Russia, and in the war, I will align with Russia, and I will even supply the weapons to Russia, because Russia is in a war with imperialism, and any agenda that seeks to push back imperialist agendas is well within the policies of the EFF.
You say quite clearly, I would arm Vladimir
Yes.
Putin.
Yes.
You know that the International Criminal Court...
Now, folks, did you see the emphasis he put on that one statement? You say I will supply Russia with arm, or I will supply Putin with arm. Did you see the emphasis he put there? But yesterday, who asked the United States? This man, he was alive. This man sitting here, he was alive. When yesterday, the United States was supporting the TPLF, to the extent the United States herself confirmed it, agreed that she supported the TPLF against the Ethiopian government to destroy the Ethiopian people. Innocence life. Yesterday, where were they so-called idiots to put emphasis on America? Let's continue here.
wants Vladimir Putin to face war crimes charges.
It must start with Tony Blair. It must start with George Bush. It must go to Barack Obama. Then it can go to Putin.
So let's get this straight. You're saying to me that your policy, if you were in power in South Africa, is quite simple. That your enemy's enemy, and it seems you regard the US and its allies as the enemy,
Yes.
your enemy's enemy
Yes.
is your friend. Never mind if he's a suspected war criminal. Never mind if the UN and the ICC say they have compelling evidence of Russian war crimes. You don't care. As far as you're concerned, my enemy's enemy is my friend.
You're exaggerating, but another point which you don't want me to go there is that Tony Blair accepted that they were wrong about Saddam Hussein to an extent that he did an apology of a thug, right? You have never called for his arrest. A man admitting that I was wrong. To how many people died?
Independent sovereign existence. He appears to believe that the best thing would be to revive an empire, the Soviet empire. But you're anti-imperialist?
We are anti-imperialist. That's a debate for another day. If the war is not what he's talking, the war is about the expansion. And had there been a common ground found, this could have been avoided. We are not for imperialism, even if it were to come from Russia. If he does that, we'll condemn it. But we know for a fact that progressive forces such as China have also aligned themselves with Putin to try and create an alternative from the imperialist domination of the world. And that's what the EFF is about.
You admire China, you admire, it seems, Putin. What you seem to have as a vision for South Africa's future is much more along those lines, authoritarianism than democracy.
No, socialism is not authoritarianism.
So how can you describe China as progressive?
No, it's very progressive. China subscribed to Leninism and Marxism, where the working class controlled the commanding heights of the economy. And that's what we subscribe for. We are of the means of production being owned and controlled by the states. We want South Africa through the vision and the image of China, where you grow the economy, where you reduce unemployment, where you reduce poverty, and you can't take that away from China. And the state plays the central role with regard to that.
That kind of message and the messaging on Russia has seen the rand plunge against the US dollar. Hang on, we see many corporations in South Africa looking at establishing headquarters elsewhere. We see foreign direct investment flatlining in this country. Do you believe that the rhetoric you are using is good for the South African economy?
I've been doing this from when you interviewed me 15 years ago when I was young. And therefore, you can't say the rand to dollar crisis today is created by this message that I've been spreading for so many years from my early ages. And then this
No, but what I'm
has been
suggesting is that the
this
new
party-
tensions between Washington and the government in South Africa have definitely affected the financial markets.
No, it was the crisis as we see it today, as we have this conversation, me and you. It was sovereignty in terms of choosing who its friends are. And today we see the rand being weak because of such utterances. Why would the rand be weakened by a political posture that says this is what we want to be when we take over government? We want a government that will be owned by the corrupt free. I admire China when it comes to how it deals with crime. I admire China when it comes to how it deals with infrastructural development. I admire China on how it has dealt with poverty and unemployment. How would that weaken the rand? Is that not what the investors want for all of us?
The most likely way that you can get a grip on some power in this country is by forming a coalition with the ANC after the next election. You could have a role if you were to do a deal with the ANC. Are you ready to do it?
The reality is that the EFF is the only organization that is growing, and that the DA and the ANC, the DA, which is the official opposition,
Yeah.
ANC, which is the ruling party, are both significantly declining to a point where the DA called us the enemy number one. Why did they do so? Their own internal research tells them that the EFF has overtaken you. That's how much our policy position has attracted the people of South Africa. We are not going into coalition for positions. We are going to say anyone who wants to work with us, and we've said this before, and that's why we're not working with anyone in the local governments. If you want to work with us, you are going to expropriate land without compensation. You are going to nationalize the mines. You are going to establish a state-owned bank. You are going to make sure that we fight crime fire by fire to make this country a safer place. Those are just but minimal, non-negotiable points that will engage with anyone who wants to work with us.
Non-negotiable. All of that, non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
On that basis, it's hard to imagine you can make a coalition with anyone.
ANC was more than willing. ANC was at a point of signing with us on expropriation of land without compensation. Remember, we even put this in Parliament. How did it pass to a point where Parliament had to do an investigation if the ANC was not agreed? We were almost at the edge of getting a deal. And some young ANC clowns decided to vote against this. But we're not going to retreat in returning the land back of the economy.
You know there are some South Africans, and let us be blunt, many white South Africans
Yes.
who fear Julius Malema. Some of them have said to me, if Malema gets to power or close to power, I will leave this country. Do you welcome their fear?
Now, first, let me add on that a little bit with that question. Do you see why African problem will only be solved by Africans and no one else? With that question, based on that question, do you think white folks in power of authority will fight for Black people when they know that the freedom of Black people in their mind is problem to them, is chaos to them, is poverty to them? They will lose their right, their privilege. Do you think they are going to put in a position that we want, or we have to fight for the position that we want to get in? How can the improvement, I don't want to say liberation, okay? I don't want to use the word liberation, but let me use this common word. How can the improvement of Black life how can the improvement of African people's life be a threat to white people to the extent that if they see black people's life being improved, they will have to leave the country, they will have to flee? Is that not, I mean, somebody make me understand. I don't even want to use the word liberation. I don't want to. But how can the life of black people, African people, be improved? Be a problem to white people? How? How can you even ask such a question? How? But do you see, when these people are fighting for their interest, they don't care about no one feeling. Let me put it this way. When these people are fighting for their interest, they don't care about black people feeding or about African people feeding. They don't care how you feel. They don't care.
Or do you want to find ways to overcome their fear?
I don't welcome their fear. Stephen, they said that about Mandela, the most celebrated Mandela. You're talking about me. They said if Mandela, a prisoner, becomes the president who will live in this country, and they left. I was in the Val River the other day, looking at some of the houses that whites abandoned in 1994 when Mandela became a president. They are not scared of Julius Malema. They are scared of an independent black man who's not controlled by any white person, who's not controlled by London.
Last year, you said this. It was after you'd questioned whether a particular white person, why they hadn't been located and, quote, taken to an isolated.
Sorry, folks. Let me make a quick contribution. So do you see, right, his interview? From the beginning of this interview, did you see anything in favor of black people? Did you see him asking about the struggle of black people? Now, at the beginning of the video, he talked about unemployment, right? Now, who are the most unemployed people in South Africa? Black people. But did he ever talk about this, about unemployment? Did he ever talk about the unemployment of black people? Did he ever talk about the circumstances, the condition of black people, the inhumane condition, no hospital, no safe drinking water? Did he talk about it? Because he talked about corruption, right? Did he talk about it? But did you see, every question, everything that he brought out was all in support of white supremacy, was all in support of white nationalists, were all in support of white globalists. Nothing about African people. Even the first video that we watched, the same thing. It was all about European or Western interests. And that's the same thing this journalist is sitting here doing.
Space where our supporters could attend to the guy properly. And you went on to say, you must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because killing is part of the revolutionary act.
Absolutely.
This was last year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't say you're a revolutionary and then be scared to kill. But once you go killing people around, you're a terrorist. When you've got the support of the majority of your people to engage in war, and the majority of the people are with you, that is the revolution. It's not terrorism. And therefore, I'm not a terrorist. That's why I'm saying, at least for now, the conditions have not dictated that there should be anyone who should go to the bush and engage in war to kill. But if those conditions necessitate, will without hesitation do that. The same way the generations before us, when conditions necessitated, they were not scared to take up guns and shoot to kill. So I'm not saying anyone must be killed. All I'm saying is, let everybody come to the party. Let's build this one country and give away our privilege,
But
for the privilege of all.
your vision of South Africa's future, will it come through the ballot box, or will it come through what you call a revolution?
It will come through the ballot box. A ballot box that produces a revolutionary party will unleash the revolution. And the revolution, when it is unleashed through democratically elected government, is the changing of the system, where you radically defeat capitalism and introduce a socialist state. We still believe in the EFF, fundamentally so, that the power to the people must be ushered in through the ballot. And nothing else must be looked at except the ballot. However, when the need arises to defend ourselves through whatever means necessary, we'll do so without hesitation.
Julius Malema, sadly, we're out of time, but I thank you very much for joining me on Hard Talk.
Thank you.
Okay. So we ended with that video. I was looking for there was another part that they cut where he asked about the guns about South Africa. It's not part of this video, but I misplaced it because we're running out of time. I can't go back to my email right now and put it up because I don't know. I had it up here, but I kind of like, I don't know what I did. Sometimes technology just gets you off. But let's continue. So, but you see in this video, everything, the interview from the first one and the second one, there's nothing there about African people, or it's about the West, okay? Or it's about Europe, or it's about white globalists, white nationalists, okay? White supremacy, white interest. Nothing about African people or about Black people. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All right? Nothing. But I dare you, this journalist will never go to Asia to go interview Asian people about Putin relationship, or China about Putin relationship, or Dubai or the Middle East about Putin relationship. Only in Africa, because they still view us as 1884 Berlin Conference. Let's continue to the next page. Now, why are they doing all these things? Okay, the question then becomes, why are they doing all these things? Are they doing these things because we have seen over the years, you know, their diplomatic delegates have proliferated on the African continent, right? Over the years, right? Now, we are also seeing their top journalists, okay? People who've been in the game for long. Now you see them on the African continent, right? Carrying on interview, doing their research or whatsoever, pushing their agenda, right? Why are they doing it? That's the question. Let's see why they are doing that. Let's see some of the reason why they are doing that, okay? I think I gotta go back to my email again. Breaks. All right, let me go back to my email because I can't see it. So let me pull my email out again. I think I have to. I did certain thing to my email. I don't know. All right, so let me go back here and pull it out. Okay. So let me pull it out and see, okay? I just got it back from my email. So let's see here.
And I recommend you only trade these handful of stocks. Why? Most traders overcomplicate their trading, especially when it comes to which stocks.
And now let's talk about money.
Sorry, folks. So the question, what I was saying here is, why do you think, okay, the frustration of America or Europe, their anchor, okay, is all on Africa. It's not on Europe. It's not on North America. It's not on Asia. It's not on Australia. But only Africa. Why do you think so? Why do you think it's only on Africa? Their frustration, their cry, their tears. Why do you think it's only on Africa? All their interviews. Why do you think it's only on Africa? Because only Africa can save them. It's on Africa because only Africa can save them. Because Africa has saved them from the past. Over and over and over and over. So let's see something here. But I believe this time around, Africa will not save them. Africa have to fight to save herself. Because over the time period where Africa has saved America and Europe, and put Africa into more problem and danger and poverty and starvation and oppression.
The geopolitics of money. Every day we tell you about global trends, about economies under pressure, currencies going up and down. Today we want to discuss how the world economy functions. You see, every country has its own currency, but every country does not use its own currency to interact with the world. So which currency do they use? Mostly the US dollar. The dollar is the currency behemoth of the world. No currency comes close to it. We're talking in terms of usage, oil trade, goods trade. Generally, most of the world trade is settled using the US dollar. Most international transactions between countries and companies are conducted using the dollar. The dollar is also the world's dominant reserve currency. What does that mean? A significant chunk of wealth owned by countries around the world is held in dollars. It's their reserve currency. They save their money in dollars. Global financial systems will collapse without the US dollar. So will the world economy. So the dollar and the US have a lot on their shoulders. And that's not necessarily a good thing. As of 2020, the US had close to $2 trillion in circulation. 2 trillion. And guess what? Half of that is believed to have been in circulation outside America. What about the markets? Around 90% of forex trading involves the US dollar. Forex, of course, is foreign exchange. 90% of this is done in the US dollar. Almost 40% of the world debt is issued in dollars. So how did the dollar become so powerful? It all happened after the Second World War. Until then, all currencies were valued in relation to gold. So gold was the benchmark. Currency values were determined based on this principle. How do they compare with the value of a specified quantity of gold? After the war, the US and its allies came up with an agreement. It was called the Bretton Woods Agreement. Do you know what it did? It replaced gold with the dollar. So all national currencies were valued in relation to the US dollar. That's how the dollar became so important, which is why we now say that the rupee is trading for such and such amount against the dollar.
Now, let me add a little bit of something here. Do you see why the United States and Europe, their focus is on Africa? Even with the BRICS currency, it's going to be backed by resources. The BRICS, the currency, is going to be backed by resources. The Russian, oil. The Russian going to use their oil, or their wheat to back it off. Because it's not just about paper. You have to bring something to the table. You have to bring something to the table. Okay? Now, I can't say the Chinese does not have resources, right? But what the Chinese have is technology. Why do you think the Chinese are not stingy or mean with their technology as compared to America and Europe? America and Europe are so stingy and mean with their technology. That's why they don't share with the African continent. China is using hot technology within the BRICS. Now, like I said, with the BRICS, you have to bring something to the table with the BRICS nation. So it's not just going to be paper. It's going to be backed by resources. So with Africa, we have almost everything, little bit of everything. Everything. We have oil, we have diamond, we have gold, we have lithium, timber, law. I mean, think about everything. We have it. And then the idea of technology. There are a lot of Africans on the African continent. They have never sat in a classroom to manufacture plane or car or moving vehicles. But go to Africa right now. There are African youth who have manufactured cars, moving cars. But they have never been to the classroom to do any technical skills. But they're learning on their own, just from YouTube. And just from looking at things. Africans have manufactured cars. Ghana is a typical example. Nigeria is a typical example. And other few countries in Africa, students or those youth have never sat in class, but they manufacture a car. So the technology is there. I mean, we just need the ideas. So Africa has the resources, then even, how they call it, or Russia, then even the Middle East. They don't have it. The richest continent in the world is Africa. But they may lie to you and say, they will not tell you Africa is the richest continent, but Africa is the richest. Because I will tell you, the richest nation in the world is in Africa, DRC Congo. The richest nation in the world is DRC Congo. So Africa is the richest continent, mineral resources in the world. Africa is not poor, but Africa is just mismanaged with propaganda of Western propaganda, looting of our resources. So there will be resources coming to the table to back up the BRICS currency. Europe does not have currency, resources, because the gold reserve that she have, it cannot withstand that generation for 10 years. So she does not have resources. In fact, the gold reserve she has, it is stolen wealth from Africa and other parts of the world. She lives on stolen property, stolen resources. America does not have it too to sustain her generation for the next 10, 15 years. That is why systematically they keep looting other nations to still reserve the little one they have, to oppress other nations, other people, and steal and loot from them. If they can, they will. So that is why that you just saw they replaced. Now, those group of Europeans, and when Africans were in there was no Africans. It was just group of Europeans and their allies went and sat down. But what made the currency, the UF currency, dominated at that time, that was chosen? Because at that time, after World War II, those nations were broke. Because America is known. That's why when there is war, that's the time America make her money. When they were fighting World War II, America was busy making money. So what you see America doing today, where there is war, and you see America, the people that benefit from it are America manufacture weapons. So it is something from down the line. That's how they make their money. So by the time World War II ended, America had the finances. Europe never have it. So that's how the US currency was taking over the gold. So now, if you go to trade in anything, you have to use the US dollar That's what makes it powerful. So if you see the US fighting Africa, it's because of that too. If you see them focus on Africa, it's because of that. Because with the fall of the dollar, the US fall. Because if you go to Africa to purchase anything, it's not going to be in dollar again. So where are you going to use the dollar? No way. The fall. The dollar is the backbone of the United States economy. And Africa is the one who had the key to keep that dollar. That's one of the secrets. Let's continue.
Its value is determined in comparison to the dollar. And this became the trend after the Second World War. Then came the oil boom. And the oil boom led to a dollar boom. You see, the dollar has become the world's dominant currency. It became the dominant reserve currency by the 1970s. So it only made sense for oil trade to be settled using American dollars. Oil transactions were made using American dollars. This came to be known as the petrodollar system. And investors stick to it because the dollar gives them a sense of stability. And that's purely on a business level. On the government side, though, the thinking is changing. Many countries are realizing the pitfalls of being overly dependent on the US dollar. Take Russia, for instance. Before Russia invaded Ukraine, it held more than 600 billion US dollars in foreign reserves. 600 billion. The US weaponized its dollar supremacy. It froze Russia's holdings. And the US can do this with any country it wants to. This realization, the kind of power that America wields, is making many countries extremely uncomfortable. China, for instance, is skeptical. Russia, of course, has been burned firsthand, which is why it is pushing BRICS to develop a common currency. BRICS.
Now, let me add a little bit of something here. Do you know why the US always have African leaders in their pocket? Pay attention again. When you see the United States and Europe hating on Africa, this is another reason I'm about to give you. Let me give you another reason. If African leaders turn their back away from the US dollar and go towards the BRICS, that means America will have no voice over Africa or African leaders. Because do you know where American government threaten African leaders? Because with the BRICS, I believe there will be some kind of a national identity in Africa. That is, we will have a central bank of Africa. But as it is now, we don't have central bank where Africans can invest or keep their money. All African leaders, their money are not in Africa. All African leaders' money are in dollar in America, in a Swiss bank. All African leaders' currency or money are in the European, the Barclays Bank. Guess where the whole African? If there is any policy the United States want to carry on the African continent or Europe, and now African leaders do not protect the interests of America in that nation or Europe in our nation, the first thing they tell them, do you know that your money is in America, is in the Swiss bank? Do you know that your money is in the US currency? It's not in African currency. It's not in Africa. It's in my country, in my land. Do you know that I can seize your money? Do you know that your money is in my how do you call it? My American banks, Bank of America or Wells Fargo, or you call them, or the Barclays Bank. Do you know that I own a bank? I can seize your money. This is where they put fear in Africans. Do you know that I can seize your money and put sanction on you? and you will never get to that account. You will never get to that money. You will never have access to that account. And this is where the whole African leaders, and once they do that, African leaders have to succumb to them. African leaders have to bow down to them because they themselves, they are corrupt. Because if they look at their account, they see billions. African leaders have billions of dollars. Yes, Africa is not poor. African leaders are corrupt. They have billions of dollars in American banks, in European banks. So when they are being threatened by America or Europe and they see their bank account, they see billions of dollars, do you think they're going to say no to America, or they're going to succumb to America foreign policy over their people? Of course, that's what's been happening on the African continent. Now, with the BRICS, America was not, they won't just go to the African continent, go threaten African nation, because guess what? African leaders no longer have their money in America or in the Swift Bank or in Barclays Bank. African leaders' money will be on the African continent and protected by Africans. That is why African leaders, you have to stop being, let me not use that word. You have to be smart. You have to be smart. Knows what you're doing. Know what is in the interest of Africans. Rule and lead your people. Empower your people when you are gone, so that your legacy will remain, your nation will remain, your continent will remain. That is just another reason the U.S. focus is on Africa. Because there are a lot of Africans' money in European banks, in U.S. bank, that when they seize it, those African leaders can't come back for it. Then they end up giving them for scholarship. That is why they have a lot of scholarship. And that is why sometimes you will just see they say, oh, this pack get grant, this get grant. It's African people money they are using as grant around these places. It is African people money they are using around these places as grant, free money, free this, free that. It's African people money. It's African leaders money.
Is an acronym for a group of 5 top emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, BRICS. Together, BRICS have a 24% share in the global economy. They represent 40% of the world's total population. If they do come up with a common currency, a BRICS currency, it could pose a stiff challenge to the US dollar. And the dollar is not the only one. Let's talk about the euro too, the official currency of 20 European nations. Together, they form the Eurozone, countries that use the euro. This region has 344 million people. The euro has one of the highest combined values of banknotes and coins in circulation the world over. Why wouldn't it? Hundreds of millions of people use the euro. The sheer size of the Eurozone gives it a mathematical advantage. Then comes Japan's yen, the world's 3rd most traded currency, also the 3rd biggest reserve currency globally. 4th on the list is
Dialpad's AI sales has completely transformed how we sell. AI is built right in with live coaching.
The UK's pound sterling. It is the world's oldest currency that is still in use. Next is China's renminbi, better known as the yuan. China wants the yuan to be used as a reserve too. It has sealed deals with countries like Russia, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Japan. What do these agreements do? They allow for trade to be settled directly in the yuan. So China has pushed the US dollar out of the equation. At least with these countries, it is trading directly in the yuan. Reports say it is trying to secure a similar deal with Saudi Arabia, which will be a very big deal. China, you see, is an oil guzzler. It buys a lot of its oil from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia makes up for 18% of China's total crude oil purchases. In the first 10 months of last year, 2022, the first 10 months, here's how much China paid Saudi Arabia for oil: more than 55 billion US dollars. Imagine that trade being settled without the dollar. And imagine more countries working out similar arrangements. In fact, that's already happening. Brazil and Argentina plan to announce a common currency. Russia and Iran are working on a cryptocurrency backed by gold. India and the UAE are looking for ways to conduct non-oil trade in rupees. Last December, Sri Lanka agreed to use the Indian rupee for all international trade with India. India and Russia also took a big step. The rupee was used for the first time to settle foreign trade between India and Russia. In fact, India's central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, has a whole mechanism in place. It's called the International Settlement of Trade in the Indian Rupee. The goal is quite simple: to facilitate settlement of trade using the rupee. Bangladesh is also considering settling bilateral trade in Indian rupees. The world, you see, is changing. Countries do not want their fortunes to be held in one currency, at the mercy of one country. The big currencies the world over have had it too good for far too long. Their uncontested rally may be coming to an end. Email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law?
All right. So you see from the video or from our discussion, now you see the reason behind the whole thing about Africa. So you see why Europe and the US, their whole focus is on Africa. You see it. You know why it's on Africa? Did you see the other nations? They print their own money in the first place. I think it's only a few countries in Africa that print their money. I think Nigeria and one other, South Africa or so. And well, of course, you know who controls South Africa. So basically in Africa, we don't print our own money. We have to come to America or we go to Norway to print our money. And then we pay them a good amount of money to print money for us. So they know we are powerless. They are not going to India, to the Middle East, Dubai, Russia, Australia. It's Africa. African leaders. African leaders. What are you doing? I know you are working, but are you working harder? Are you working overtime? Are you thinking beyond? I know you are working, but are you working overtime? Are you thinking beyond? What is your vision? What is your short-term and long-term vision? Because yesterday you told about 2023, there will be silence of gun on the African continent. But here is 2023, and in fact, the increase of gun sound on the African continent is rampant. What is your vision? So, folks, you see the reason behind the US, UK, or EU interest in Africa. Because those nations that you see, the China, the Russia, the Asia, or all the Middle East, all of them, at the end of the day, they depend on this continent right here. All of them depend on this continent right here. That is why you see Japan all running to the African continent. The Middle East, they asking African leaders to have meeting with them. All of them. The question then becomes, do we have the power in our hands? Do we realize that we have the power? I don't think so. Let's continue. Let's get to our next topic, the LGBT. I'm not going to leave that out, I promise. All right. So let's watch a video. So Uganda finally passed a law. I don't want to call it anti. Okay? Because if I say anti, then I am speaking against the African norms, the African values, the African families. I don't call it norm. I don't call it anti. Uganda just passed a bill to protect African lives, African youth, African children, African family, African reproduction, the next generation. Uganda just passed a bill. I don't call it anti. The white man in a white man home in America or Europe can call it anti, how they want to call it. That's their business. Because as long as it's not in our favor, it's anti. But as long for we African is in our favor, it's never an anti. So no African should call that bill in Uganda anti. If you say anti, then you are against the bill and you are for. So it is not anti. It is in our favor. Something cannot be in your favor and you call it anti. Let's see something here. So let's see. So you're going to pass a bill to protect Africans. And America is angry for Africans to be protected. Oh, but America did not get angry when one of their own governor in Florida, DeSantis, threatening LGBT. America did not get angry. But America got a gust to get angry at an African nation because that nation wants to protect African life and African youth, African family. America does not like African family and African youth. America does not like the reproduction of Africans. If you call that anti, then that means you anti-African life and values. That means you devalue African life. If you call that anti-America, you are the one anti-African. Because you say you believe in democracy and you believe in the voice of the people. But the voice of the people of the Ugandan have spoken, and you call that anti when the Ugandan support the bill and the law, and you call that anti. Are you a democratic nation for sure? Or you've been lying to Africans over the years? Let's see the reaction of Africans when the bill was passed and America went against the bill. So we're going to read an article from almost all the senators and representatives in America here. They're always into people's business, but none of them have ever questioned Ron DeSantis in Florida that have one of the highest anti-LGBT bill in Florida. I'm calling it anti because I'm referring it to them. It's not in Africa because it's for them. But none of them comment on it. None of the White House ever questioned Ryan DeSantis. But they got the guts again to go to the African continent. Because they feel that Africa is a colony to them. They feel that Africans are still property. They feel that Africans are still inferior. They feel that Africans are 3/5 of a lesser human being. All right. Oh, let me see. I hope it didn't block me. Because I've been holding. Okay. I don't think so. If not, I will pull it back. All right. They changed the article, but I'm going to pull it back. Don't worry. Let me see here. Take this out. Okay. Now, this article says, no, that's not the article I want. I may not talk about this. This is not the article that I want. Why they change it? This is not the article that I want. Let me see back here. U.S. sanction. No, this is not the article that I want. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna leave that out. Let's see here. Okay. Let me see. Okay, let me just go to my email and pull it out because I want to start with that. If I can't, then I will just leave it. All right. I'm still going to pull it out. Okay. All right. All right. So recently, I think this week or last week, the Ugandan parliament unanimously passed a law, and I'm not going to call it passed a law. I don't know why they keep doing this. They don't want me to show this. They keep changing it for each time I want to. Hold on. Okay, let me find a way. They keep changing it. I don't know what's going on here. Hold on. Let me see this here. Okay. Let me figure out something to do here. Hold on, folks. Let me see here. Okay, let me take this out here. That's not what I want. Okay, when I pull this out, they keep changing it to something different. All right, now it's here. But when I pull it out, let me see here. All right, hopefully they shouldn't change it again. I'll just leave it there. All right, so it says U.S. threatening sanction visa restriction against Uganda over anti-LGBTQ law. Now, for us, I don't think we call this anti because something that is in our favor to protect us, it is not anti. So let's see here what the U.S. says. Now, all these United States lawmakers, right? Let's watch something here. Washington, it says a harsh new anti-LGBT law, one of the most restrictive in the world, in Uganda, is drawing global condemnation and an online debate among a couple of high-profile American conservatives. Who cares? Who cares if a high-profile American conservative, who are them or who are they? Who cares if they're high-profile? Who cares? Are they high-profile? Why can't they go talk about the issue in Florida? Why can't they go talk to Ron DeSantis if they are high-profile? Oh, they are only high-profile when it comes to Africa. They are only high-profile when it comes to Africa, but they are not high-profile to talk about Dubai or to talk about the Middle East. or to talk about those places. They are not high profile, right? They are only high profile when they come to Africa. Bunch of hypocrites. Allies of the East African nation, including the US, are threatening sanction, and aid is now in jeopardy. Aid is not in jeopardy. You can keep your aid. After all, United States is the one living off Africa. After all, Africa is the one giving aid to the United States in order for the United States to survive in our economy. Why do you think they keep running to the African continent? Why do you think they keep backing African people? Why do you think they keep pressurizing African people? Because they receive aid from African people. They don't want to tell their citizens that the American economy is surviving because of Africa. They don't want to tell their citizens, you are surviving. You have jobs because of Africa. Because Africa raw materials are coming to the US and to Europe. For a typical example, we just saw in France. Since 2020, France had the highest term of protest ever. They are still protesting. Why? Because, to be specific, the Francophone nation has stood up firm and say our resources will not go to France again. Our raw material will not go to France again. The French currency will not be used to trade. Every year, the French government takes $500 billion from us, from taxes. We will not pay again. So the French economy collapsing. But this is what they do to threaten us, to make us afraid. Aid. What have aid done to Africa? What development in Africa that you can point to say this is American aid? What development? What development you can point to in Africa to say this is American aid? Let's continue here. But I said to the Ugandan government, you have more than aid. Your nation is rich. All you need to do is empower your people. Whether economically or technologically, any way, educational, any way, empower your people. Who told you if you empower your people, you will not be rich? In fact, you will be more rich than the white man coming into your country, exploiting your resources, taking over your mine and diamond, taking over your water bodies and your airspace. If yourself take over your water body, your airspace, your mine, your diamond, your resources, you'll be more rich and richer than the white man. We once did when we control it. Go and read about Mensa Musa. Go and read about Queen Ya Ashantiwa. Go and read about Queen Izinga. Go and read about them. Just a few among the menace. Go and read about them and see how they live, how they were rich. Were they not rich? Let's continue here. The law punishment of gay sex include death penalty and lifetime prison sentence. This is not only in Uganda, this is happening. But do you see how they make this case to say Uganda is the worst country in the world? Africa is the worst place to go. Hey, you don't have to go there if you are an American gay or lesbian. Don't go there. Don't go there. It's not forced. Stay here. Don't go there. Just how in Florida, in America here, they are depriving you in a country that you call your own. Why are you not talking? Why are you not making noise in America? LGBT have been threatened to go to Florida. Why are you not protesting? Why are you not coming out with statement, US Today? Because US Today came out with this statement. US Today, why there is no article on the issue of the center in Florida. Why are you not talking about it? Don't go to Africa. We don't even need you there. We don't need you. We need Africans of goodwill, not that kind of will to destroy the African society. Even those that are there, we will punish them. Those that are on the African continent, they are toxic to the African family and the African culture and the African environment. So they are also included. Leave and come to America, apply for visa. Come there. They are the one practicing it. Come, they will give you visa and come see if LGBT are being protected. In America, LGBT are not being protected. They are being humiliated. They are being insulted. In fact, state in this country, LGBT cannot go there. Florida is not just Florida. There are states in this country, in this United States, LGBT. You cannot go. You can't. Then why is the U.S. not talking about that? Only Africa. What do you want from Africa? Leave this damn continent. Sorry to say it, but leave Africa alone. Enough is enough. America and Europe with your BS, with your bully. Leave us alone. Fight your battle in America here. Fight the anti-LGBT law in America here first. Your pipe is leaking, and you are looking at another people's pipe and telling them you have a bad pipe. And when your pipe is even more bad than the next man's pipe, your pipe is leaking. Go and fix your leakages and leave Africa alone. Let's continue here. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article, but do you see here? I want to talk about this. I mean, I might post the article if anybody need it, but it's not even need, it's not necessary. But these are all, how they call it, American lawmaker, Texas, lawmaker, Colin Allen, another person here. These are all American lawmakers. Okay? Republican, Ted Cruz. All of them putting more on Africa. Putting more on Uganda about law that was created to protect Africans. Where are these lawmakers? Where are these senators or representatives talking about black issue in this country? Where are they condemning Florida? They are not condemning Florida. But look at them. Ted Cruz, they're all here. Look. Even Joe Biden himself spoke. President Joe Biden, in a lengthy statement on Monday, called for the Ugandan law repeal, saying it is tragic violation of universal human rights that jeopardize the nation economy, prospect or something. Joe Biden, all of them, but Joe Biden have never condemned the Florida governor of the anti-LGBT law. He have never. Okay? But see here, since when have they posted Julia Malema? This is Julia Malema. And sometimes I don't even understand Julia Malema at times. His 10. This was one. I agree with him, but this is one that I did not agree with him. He's standing right here with this cloth on him. Since when have American media posted Julia Malema about the ill in society that he been speaking about the ill in South Africa he been speaking about the ill in Africa in general he been speaking about? Since when have American media ever posted this man to talk about what he been speaking of in favor of African people? Since when? But because he came here to speak for LGBT, so now they took him and put him in here so that the African masses on the African continent can see it and buy it. Bunch of hypocrites, white media, nationalists, American media, European media, bunch of hypocrites. Since when have you guys ever talked about the interests of African people when this man speak? When did you publish him? When did you ever publish him when he talked about land without compensation? When you talk about taking land from white and distributing it to black, since when did you publish him? Nonsense. But you see, right? All these governors, all these leaders, all these representatives, they are here. All these senators, they're all in here. They spoke against us, right? But let's see here what they did to Saudi Arabia. Let's see here. It's Africa, they usually carry their stupidity. Let's see what they did to Saudi Arabia here. Let's see what they did to Saudi Arabia. Even Joe Biden, let's see what the American government did to Saudi Arabia here. Let's see here. Let me see. Now, let's see this here, right? What they did to Saudi Arabia. So you see here. Now, they say Uganda was the most dangerous, and I don't know how to describe it, is in there, right? But let's see the hypocrisy of the United States. They are supporting Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia even have death penalty as well for LGBT. Death penalty. But no, they are not talking about that. But let's see here. How can the State Department, gay spokesperson, defend Saudi Arabia? How can the State Department, gay spokesperson, defend Saudi Arabia? Let's see this right here. Now, let's go to the United States. I hope they're listening. Last Tuesday, President Biden, who made a statement about Uganda not practicing universal law or human rights. This is Joe Biden. Do you see the hypocrisy of the United States? Do you see the hypocrisy of Joe Biden? Here is Joe Biden defending Saudi Arabia. Here is Joe Biden defending Saudi Arabia. Last Tuesday, President Biden signed into law the Respect for Marriage Act. Oh, President Biden. So, this Respect for Marriage Act, who did you sign it for? Did you sign it for white? And I'm asking you, did you sign it for white? So then, if in Africa, if they sign it to protect marriage, and as we know, marriage is between a man and a woman. That's how been the traditional definition of marriage. Unless in recent time, it has been changed by white folks. But in Africa, maybe I don't know about America, or I don't know about Europe. Let me speak for Africa and African people. In Africa, marriage is between a man and a woman. Not a man and man, or a woman, or a dog and man, a dog and woman, an animal and man, animal and woman, a cat and a man, a dog and a woman. No. Marriage is between a man and a woman, and to procreate and to have family. Maybe in America and Europe, marriage is between a man and woman. Yes, then that is different society. What you practice in your society, keep it. Understand that, President Biden. But let's read. President Biden signed into law the Respect for Marriage Act, protecting marriage equality in the U.S. But the same date, his administration went to bat for Saudi Arabia, one of the most violently homophobic country on earth. But the United States is the one making business with Saudi Arabia and did not condemn Saudi Arabia after he passed this. But America was the next day in Saudi Arabia drinking champagne with Saudi Arabia. But listen to what Joe Biden had to define marriage here, right? Protecting marriage equality in the U.S. Yes, that's fine. Protecting marriage equality. And men can get married. That's the American society. Keep it. Keep your society. Keep your height. Don't carry to the African continent. In Africa, one man can have 3 wives. In America, you don't have to. One man cannot have 3 wives. You find it as abomination. So in Africa, in fact, in America, one man cannot have 3 wives. You find it as abomination. African people have never questioned America about why you deprive men from having 3 wives or 4 wives. We don't ask America. We do on the African continent. That's our business. So equally so, we don't come to you and tell you, say, you depriving men from having 3 wives, or women that want to have, you know, or that want to give men chance to have 3 wives. Why can't you allow them to do it? That's our business. That's not our business. So in America, men and men marrying, let us stay in America. That's not Africa. Your life in America is not a life in Africa. Because first of all, I make this clear. When it comes to medical condition, when it comes to medical treatment, have you seen the many LGBT, black LGBT with HIV/AIDS with no treatment, and they are being left abandoned? And the white that have HIV/AIDS, they are more treated than the black that have HIV/AIDS. And then you want to take that to the African continent? Let's continue here. Under Saudi Arabia law, consensual same-sex sexual conduct is punishable by death. So, if it is punishable by death in Saudi Arabia, then why is America focusing on Africa to say Africa have done the worst thing? But here is America dining and warning with Saudi Arabia. Here is Joe Biden warning and dining and drinking champagne with Saudi Arabia. Under Saudi Arabia law, consensual same-sex sexual conduct is punishable by death or flogging. They flog you. They flog you. When you come from there, you will never think about putting your butt in the air for another man to look through it. Now, who reported this, first of all? Who reported this? Under Saudi Arabia law, consensual same-sex sexual conduct is punishable by death or flogging. Report the U.S. State Department. The U.S. State Department reported on this. But in here, the U.S. State Department did not mention anything about Saudi Arabia going against universal human rights. But only in Africa, the United States can carry her hypocrisy agenda or propaganda agenda to talk about universal human rights are being violated. How about Saudi Arabia? America, you are a hypocrite. You are not fair. You are not fair. You are a hypocrite. Let's continue here. While we celebrate Biden administration as a champion for LGBT plus Q right domestically in the US now, domestically in America, domestically in Delaware, state of Delaware, how can we allow support in our names for foreign in our name for regime around the world that kill member of our community. So this is an LGBT person speaking that how can we be so hypocrite? We are hailing Joe Biden as champion of LGBT in America, domestically, in Delaware, the state he's from. But here it is, a regime that killing their people, the LGBT, all right? Because this is an LGBT person speaking. He's telling his people, how can we hear Joe Biden? But here it is, in country where they are killing our people, or they are killing us, Joe Biden is warning and dining with them. Joe Biden is making business with them. Joe Biden is not criticizing them. Joe Biden supports their law. Let me read that. While we celebrate the Biden administration as champion for LGBT plus Q, that plus Q, that Q plus mean you can marry your dog. You can lay down and have sex with your dog. Domestically, how can we allow support in our name for regime around the world that kill members of our community? How can we turn a blind eye to Saudi Arabia, oppression of women's rights, activists, journalists, and their neighbor in Yemen, who they have bombarded and blockaded into starvation? Oh, the United States is the one I'm talking about. Human rights, okay, women rights, children rights. But here is a question that was asked by a gay person. How can the United States keep silent on the issue that is going on in the Arab country or in Saudi Arabia, where women rights have been violated due to LGBT, children are being killed due to LGBT, people are being hanged to death or killed to or flogged to death, okay, just by being LGBT. But Joe Biden administration is not talking. What is wrong with America? Why are they so obsessed with Africa? Let's continue here. So he went as far as saying the LGBT person, either State Department spokesperson, Ned Price, just that at the Victory Institute LGBTQ Leader Conference, closing partner in Washington. Earlier this month, Mr. Price, a fellow gay man, has been rightfully celebrated for his role in the administration, but the LGBT community has been largely silent on the policies he and others end up promoting within their position and the Biden administration diplomacy in general, right? Now, how can Mr. Price defend the U.S. ally with Saudi Arabia, a dictatorship that killed gay people like him, violate women's rights, and starve children in Yemen? He responded that the U.S. should preserve its relationship with Saudi Arabia to influence its behavior. Listen to this. He responded after the asking, this United States diplomat or governmental body responded, he responded that the U.S. should preserve its relationship with Saudi Arabia to influence its behavior. That means the U.S. will not influence the people of Saudi Arabia culture, their way of life, their identity, protecting their family, okay? Protecting the next generation. The U.S. will not interfere. But the U.S. will preserve, when the U.S. will remain silent to preserve her influence or her interests. But why the U.S. can't do that to Africa or to Uganda? Why is the U.S. making noise? But here is the U.S. being a hypocrite, talking about they are making business with Saudi Arabia, their own influence in the decision that the Saudi Arabia have taken to protect their people. Then why it is an anti in Africa? If it is not, and the US does not look at it as anti in Saudi Arabia, why would the United States look at it as anti in Africa? That is why I said the United States hate Africans. The United States hate the reproduction of Africans. And the reason why the United States is doing that is because this is a tactic by the United States government to depopulate the African nation, the African continent, the African people. If they came out to say by the year 2050, half of the world will be Africans, why do you think they are doing this? By the year 2050, they do not want half of the world to be Africans. Because if by the year 2050, half of the world is African, that means who is getting extinct? Who is getting extinct? If half of the world will be African by the year 2050. So they are pushing agenda to depopulate African family, to destroy African family. Because before you know, half of African by the year 2050 will be HIV positive. Half of the year of African by the year 2050. If we are not mindful to preserve the African family, to pass law to protect Africans, and we want to go by the hypocrite of American laws, by the year 2050, African will die in numbers. Before the year 2050, African will die in number by disease, by sickness. Because the medical facility will not be distributed equally between white and black. Let me be specific here. This is not hate. We are just speaking based on experience of what is going on in the world when it comes to some of these things. Now listen to what I say again. When we do have that engagement, Mr. Price said, we can preach the kingdom. Listen to this. We can push the kingdom. Try to push the kingdom and its decision maker in a more constructive route. Then, if they have this idea or narrative of getting to the southern kingdom in a more constructive way, why can't they do that to Africa? But they always go to Africa with sanction, with sanction, with this, with that, with fear. Why do they always do that? But new flash, Africans, we should not get into America. We should not bow down to America. We should stand firm. Let America keep her aid. After all, aid have done nothing to Africa. After all, they are the ones depending on Africa for aid. After all, what they take from Africa is aid, but they just exploit us. Our difference is we don't exploit them, but they exploit us. They kill our leaders. That's the most worst way of doing business to people. They don't want to receive aid from us. We don't need nothing from them. Build your continent. Build our continent, African leaders in authority and in power. Unite. Stop being independent nations. Stop being a colonial nation. Unite. So do you see what they did here? We can preach. They did not say we can punish or we will sanction Saudi Arabia, but they said we can push the kingdom. Try to push the kingdom and its decision maker in a more constructive route when it comes to human rights. Then why did the United States did not preach Uganda in a more constructive way when it comes to human rights? Because Uganda is protecting the human right of a citizen and the African people. So do you see what the United States is doing across the other side versus across to the African nations? Is the United States really a good partner to Africa? Let me ask this question. Is the United States really a good partner, a fitting partner to Africa? Maybe I don't think so. Based on what I'm reading here, this is not my answer is not based on opinion. My answer is based on what I'm reading and what I know. Is the United States a good partner to Africa? Absolutely, I don't believe so. The United States see Africa as a colony and see African people as property, inferior, 3/5 of a lesser human being. That's how the United States see Africa and African people. And that is why we are not buying out to America. That is why we are not saying yes to America. That is why we are drifting away from America, because of our behavior, because of our hypocrisy when it comes to dealing with Africa and when it comes to dealing with other people. So I will stop here. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I can post it. Now, let's see the response of Ugandan in Uganda when America responded on putting sanctions on Uganda. And in fact, America put sanction on the Ugandan parliament speaker or speaker of the house. They put sanction on her not to travel to the US. Imagine that. But they did not put sanction on the prime minister of Saudi Arabia to come to the US. Is America a good partner to Africa? I don't think so.
Here is your latest Africa news. The U.S. has revoked the visas of Uganda's Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, with lawmaker Asuman Basalirwa saying she is the first victim of likely sanctions after Uganda's anti-gay law. The U.S. had threatened Uganda if the legislation came into force. This is very hypocritical, as the U.S. seems to currently have no problems with some of its allies, like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, who have even stricter gay laws. Many have accused the West of being bullies and not wanting Africans to make their own decisions based on what their societies want. The speaker's current visas have been cancelled, and this is confirmed in an email. Basalirwa, who moved the bill, said, "Homosexual acts are already illegal in Uganda, but now anyone convicted faces life imprisonment. The legislation imposes the death penalty for aggravated cases, which include having gay sex with children or where someone spreads a lifelong illness, including HIV. The bill was passed in Parliament earlier this month, with only one MP opposing it, which showed that Parliament's role is to stand for and promote the interests of the people of Uganda. I now encourage the duty bearers under the law to execute the mandate bestowed upon them in the Anti-Homosexuality Act. The people of Uganda have spoken, and it is your duty now to enforce the law in a fair, steadfast, and firm manner," the speaker wrote on Twitter. If you found this video informative, the speaker wrote on Twitter. In firm manner.
Yeah, so as you can see, the United States, these are members of parliament. These are people that voted unanimously. How can you go against these people when you say you believe in democracy? These are people that voted to protect, to preserve the life of Ugandan citizens, children, youth, next generation, to protect their life when it comes to sicknesses or diseases. Because they are also looking at the inadequate medical facility they have on the African continent, and to be specific in Uganda as well. And they are trying to make rightful decision for their people. How dare you, United States, to sit down and say, look, I dare you to sit down in your corner, to sit down on looted resources, to oppress African over resources that you looted from them, to improve your economy, your technology, your hospital, your roads, your medicine. And when these people don't have it, but they are finding a way to protect Ugandan in Uganda, far away land from the United States, to say we're going to punish you. Why can't you punish Saudi Arabia? But you are there whining and dining, drinking wine with Saudi Arabia. But you go on the African continent to threaten an African leaders. Look at these people. You say you believe in democracy. Fake democracy you believe in. Look at these people here. These are parliamentarians that voted unanimously. Oh, I thought you said the voice of the people is democracy. I thought you said the will of the people is democracy. I thought you said but the people is democracy. But this is but the people, and you said no. This is of the people, and you said no. This is with the people, and you said no. Then what is the definition of democracy? Mr. America, who want to act like the police for the war, but you are a hypocrite. Let's continue here. Let's see what the youth of Uganda say. Let's see how the youth of Uganda answer to America. Bunch of fools sit down and then say they're making decision for the world. Make decision for America first. Go and condemn Ryan DeSantis in Florida first before you want to talk about Africa. This will be the last video, folks. Then we'll call it for a day. I know we've been here for a long. This will be the last video. And then we're done.
Ooh, I like this kitchen. Just a show.
I really want to be here. Here is your latest Africa news. Uganda youths take to the streets after U.S. president threats. Hundreds of Uganda youths from at least 12 universities took to the streets after U.S. President Joe Biden threatened Uganda with sanctions over its new anti-gay law. The students could be heard chanting, "We don't want your pro-gay money. We love our country more than your money." The U.S. had threatened Uganda if the legislation came into force. This is very hypocritical, as the U.S. seems to currently have.
So, Mr. America, this is Uganda. The youth has spoken. The youth has spoken. These are the youth, the parliament, those parliamentarians protected. These are the youth, or those are the youth, the leader of Uganda try to protect. So that tomorrow, when they are not there, they will rule the country. They will take over as leader. Not as people who their butt are leaking with water, like waterfall. Then they will have to put diaper or pie on them. Men don't wear pie. Women wear pie. Men don't wear pie. Men walk like a man. Men move. Men sit down like a man. Men don't sit down and do like this and sit down like this. No, men sit like a man. In America, men sit like this. Before they sit down, they do their hand like this to their butt and sit down because they're trying to hold their pie for their pie not to fall, for their pie to stay, and then they sit down. But in Africa, men don't put their hand, men sit down like a man. And we want to sit down like a man, not to sit down like a woman, like a female. No. You can sit down like that in America. In Africa, we don't. And that is why those youth are sending warning to you, Mr. America, letting you know you do not decide for their future. Your decision for their future is destruction. It's destruction. It's demonic. It's to demonize them. It's to see them perish before 2050. Even if they will live that time to see that time. So they are sending warning to you, you Mr. America, Mr. Biden, with your section, you can keep it. We don't need it from you. We don't need your aid. We are rich. We just need good government. And our leader on the African continent, if you are doing the right thing, your citizen will be with you. They will protect you. As you can see in Uganda. If you are doing the right thing, there is no need for a citizen to betray you or to go against you. They will protect you. They will stand with you. Do the right thing. Provide means for them. Stand for them. And they will stand for you. You know the next person that the United States and EU about to go for to support in Rwanda or let's say in Uganda is what a man name? Bobby Wine. It's Bobby Wine because Bobby Wine over the year, Bobby Wine have been coming to America, going to Europe and having European meeting, asking for European or American validation to become president. But at that time, it was not ready for him yet. But now, they are about to go for him. They are about to use him to be the hero. They are about to sell him to the Ugandan. But you cannot be afraid. That is not to say, Mr. Bobby Wine, I don't like you. But over the year, as a revolutionary, we have studied you. We have been watching you. You have been going to the wrong people for help. And over the year, they've watched you grow. They watch your tone. They watch you. And they were just waiting for the appropriate time to come for you. And they are now about to come for you, Mr. Bobby Wine. And you're going to be thinking, yes, it's my time. But guess what? When you get there, you have to dance by the drum sound of the devil, because the devil put you there. Do not be deceived by them when they come. But I know you're going to go because it has been your fight for them to validate you, for them to support you, to move Mr. Vinny. So it is Bobby Wine, America and Europe about to go for to support, to bring to the Ugandan as the hero or as a hero for Ugandan. But let me warn you, African and Ugandan, any man or woman that America chooses for you, that person is not your leader. Any man or woman that Europe chooses for you, that person is not your leader. Any man or woman that the colonizer, the enslaver, or the oppressor, the imperial chooses for you, that person is not your leader. That person is their leader and not your leader. Don't get that twisted. Ladies and gentlemen, Comrade Huru. I know we've been here for so long. This is today's presentation. I will see you guys Saturday and also Sunday. I was about to say Friday, but not Friday. Sunday. I gotta get used to it. So we've been here for so long. So thank you for tuning in and thank you for sticking. This is today's message, and then I will see you all Sunday. Who will come here?